Dr. Omar Sherin, who is the Cybersecurity Director of Ernst & Young, to present on OT Cyber Monitoring Operating Modules. Please.
So thanks everyone for your time today. I'll try to make it within the 20 minutes. My name is Omar Sherin, and I'm a cybersecurity partner in EY. I'm responsible for the OT cyber within the Africa, India, Middle East region. Before EY started in Shell, and then I managed the national ICS cert for almost 10 years, handling many incidents in the Middle East. So what I will start with today is an experiment that we have been running continuously for almost 4 years now. And then the result of that experiment taught us something really insightful and really useful for us, that we decided to maybe make it a service or a product and then share it with the wider audience. So in this presentation, and as a disclaimer, I have to say that some of the materials and some of the images have came from different sources, because that's the research. That's how we build research, how we rely on each other's knowledge. And the methodology that came out of that is called S-Hazoop. It's an EY methodology. So the experiment. For 4 years, we have been running a series of OT honey-nets across the globe, placed in US, in Europe, in China, and one in the Middle East. And what we do is that every 6 months, we give them, all of them, one flavor. That's a PLC on a safety system. That's a PLC on a specific product that is gaining popularity. And what we are doing is that we analyze the attacks that happen on those fake PLCs or those honeypots, and then we compare what has been this attack trying to do, and if the geolocation of this asset has anything to do with it, which gives you an insight. What are we actually seeing in the Middle East? Is this something specifically for the Middle East, or this is the same attacks that are happening globally, or the same interest? And the result is that for the past 6 months, we've been trying a safety PLC. After Trisis, we said, okay, let's try that. And we're seeing lots of interest in that. The bad guys are really trying hard across the 4 nodes that we have placed to really understand more, explore, get more information about this safety system. But the problem is that for the 4th year running, or almost 3 years continuously, the PLC in the Middle East is the worst. It's seeing the most of the attacks, and it's coming from traffic coming from China, Russia, Iran, and the US. Of course, we cannot confirm that this is the original, originator of the traffic, but this is how it looks like by just resolving the IP. So why are we seeing the worst attacks? Why the Middle East is seeing the worst? It can be for 2 reasons. Either we are the weakest link, we are the weakest, from global perspective, we are the weakest region. That's what encourages people. Or we have no deterrence. I mean, with the regulatory landscape, with the national strategies in the region, there's actually no deterrence. People do not afraid of any consequence that can come after that. So maybe that's, or a mix of those things, or other sources of decision making that influence this decision. But we have to be ready, because we are seeing the worst. That's the result we're gathering. And from the work that has been done in 4 years, we can comfortably group all the bad behaviors into 3 buckets. Either they are after damaging the production, or damaging the equipment, or actually causing a safety problem. From the production damage point of view, as the table in the middle, if you can imagine, that's the this table, 99% and 100%. That's the price of paracetamol, which is a medical product, per kilo in euros. If the product quality is 99%, that's almost 400 euros per kilo. If the product quality is 100% pure, it's more than 600,000 euros. That's how 1% downgrade in quality can affect you. So it's really a topic that maybe some people are interested in, beside production damage, equipment damage, and safety issues. So focusing on safety, I want you to take this quiz with me. Let's assume we are all hackers. we have successfully achieved access to a plant. So we will see an actual diagram of a process of a plant, and let's discuss as a team, as a hackers team, what's the easiest way to do damage quickly, based on the 3 topics we mentioned. So I'm not sure if the pointer is working here, but let me walk you through that process. So you have ingredients coming in. Those are the ingredients. You will analyze the ingredients. Then you have a reactor that will mix the ingredients. Then a condenser. Then a device that will spray the bad things from the process. And then the actual product will be analyzed and then output from here. And the actual purge or the bad things will come out of the top. Of course, if you see something like this, that's a valve. If you see something like that, that's let's say a pump. So in this diagram, now you're a hacker. You have access to this. You have worked your way hard into the plant. You came to that visual representation of the process. How to start? Where to hack the system? It's not about the weakness in the windows or the buffer overflow. It's what after that. Once you have access to the plant, what can you do here? So let me ask you this question. If you have access to this, and I give you one task, my objective is to blow up the reactor. I want to blow up the reactor. That's equipment damage. That's my objective from this attack. Where should I hit? Any ideas? Just, it's a fun exercise. Any ideas, concepts? Let's try something. Anyone? Any spot that should be of interest? Excuse me? Which valve? The top? Here? So that's the input into the reactor. So if I stop that, I will prevent some inputs or ingredients from entering the reactor. That might change the product, how it will behave and so on, but it will not affect, it will not blow up the reactor. Let me make it easy. Actually, yeah. So for example, if I stop the valve that is responsible for the purge that's going out, if the reactor cannot release the things that he wants to release, what will happen here? The pressure will increase, so it might blow up. So then in that case, I'm an attacker. After understanding the process, I'm trying to make a very easy example. Then I would be interested in that PLC controlling that valve, because this will achieve my objective. But you can see there's 100 other things to do. It depends on what the bad guy wants. And in a national cert, we had in many years hundreds of incidents. Unfortunately, most of them cannot go public. But this is what's happening. They spend months and months inside the companies not trying to break into systems. That's the first step. But actually trying to understand what to do with this access. So that's the key end game for them. So let's take another example. Of course, time is of essence, and we will come to that. So OT hackers need to deal with lots of variables. Once you go inside the plant, there's many things to control. Obtaining access is not obtaining control, and breaking into the system is just the beginning. You need to now study the plant you're after. And then it brings this concept in the SOC, the analyst, do they have this knowledge? Or they just see the first step, which is breaking into the system. They do not understand what's the impact of that PLC. If I have 2 PLCs compromised, which one is critical, which one is not critical? That's something we really need to capture. So that's another example. And as I said, same process, same diagram before, but this one was colors. And it depends on the scenarios you have seen in every plant, because every plant is unique. In that case, if once you have a valve and a pump next to each other, that's a scenario or a candidate for water hammer or a liquid hammer attack. If you increase the pump and close the valve, what will happen to the pipeline? Increase the pressure, close the valve. What will happen to this pipeline? Break. So that's a break. You can break things with this way if that's your objective. This is not a vulnerability in Windows. This is not a vulnerability in your, it's a vulnerability in the design of the process, and that's what you need to understand on your plan so you can protect it better than others. Because the bad guys are really investing time in this to really understand how it can be done. So let's take another scenario. If my objective is to affect the production and clog your pipes, so I can play with the switch, the heat exchanger, this will condensate material, and then I will clog your process. Maybe that's my objective. My objective is not to blow up your plant. I do not want to attract attention. I just want to stop it for any production objective. Then that's what I will do. This is not something on Windows. Windows is the first step that gets you there. After that, it's depending on your knowledge of the plant. Last example, if I want to affect the environment and the safety. If I open this valve, I will mix the steam with some ethylene and some bad emissions. This will, and then I open the purge, then I will fill the sky with something very bad for people. If that's my objective, I will not damage, I will not blow up things, I will hurt the people living in that vicinity. That's my objective. Again, it depends on the bad guy's knowledge of the plant and how it's structured. Then the last element is time. When to do your attack, when to launch it. And that's a study, I believe it was from Honeywell originally, that's measuring the impact of playing with the sensor of a reactor, responsible for the pressure of the reactor in variable times of the day. Every day, the reactor goes through phases that relies on because of the temperature and the ingredients in that reactor at the same time. Launching an attack at different times gives different answers and different outcomes. If I attack at 8 a.m., that would be the behavior. If I attack at night, that would be the behavior. If I attack exactly at noon, that would be the behavior. This is my outcome. This is what I want. So they really need to study hard, and that's how they spend time. This taught us a few things. So we went back to this attack kill chain, which is very famous, all the steps of the bad guys and how they achieve their objective. And we added two things based on our knowledge. Number one, we added testing. Under validation, I think most of the incidents I've been involved with, they actually tested. This is unique to OT. I have not seen this in IT. They actually test the attack on a small scale before they do it. Because of all the variables I just explained, they want to make sure it actually can work. Then on the last thing, we can confidently now add amplification phase. This is very unfortunate. This is after crisis. And I will give you an example what amplification, in our opinion, means. If you have a smart car, and I hacked your car, and I'm going to crash you into a wall, that's attack number one. But if I also disable your airbag and safety belt, that's attack number two. This is amplification of the attack. My intention for amplification is to kill you, is not to damage the car. Damaging the car is the scenario that I'm creating. But actually killing you is my objective. So the amplification, that phase, which comes at the end now, is unique to OT. And I think this is something we need to be careful and aware of, because it really can change the game of how we plan our plant security. Okay, so with all of this, we took a step back and we said we need to consider how we evaluate our plant security, how we can manage the risk inside the plant. So we came up with this idea, and we call it security Hazoop. We linked the Hazoop method, which is very famous for risk analysis and safety, with the 62443 method. We linked security to safety in a scientific way to show that impacting and attacking this PLC will not give you high, medium, low, or green, red, whatever, doesn't mean anything to anyone. It will lead to chlorine discharge. Attacking this PLC will do nothing. Attacking that one should not happen. So we went to that level, and we now can systematically prove that, and we have seen tremendous appreciation of this method because it makes sense to the management. And the reason why we thought of this is because of the similarities between how the Hazoop method is structured and how we think of something like defense in depth. If you look at the Hazoop method, which is a safety method used in all plants for many, many years, you can see that it actually consists of layers. There's layer one, which is prevention by process. The process is designed to prevent problems. Then you have layer 2, layer 3, and so on, until layer 7, which is the emergency response. If problem actually cannot be avoided, you mitigate it by declaring emergency. Sorry. So what we do in this analysis, we break systems into boxes, and we ask ourselves what can go wrong from safety for every single thing in the plant. It's really that, that detailed. In this example, every yellow box, which is a traditional, structured plant, it can happen it can be existing in any plant. Every yellow box is something connected to the Ethernet, so it is subject to that problem. Only the, boxes in gray, which are they are isolated and not connected to the Ethernet, might be out of scope of that study. But everything yellow box is part of our study, because it can be connected, it can be used to impact safety. So the exceptions are relays, fuses, contactors, and separators. Everything else can be used against safety. That's an example from a Middle East company. We broke the environment. It's a petrochemical company. We brought it into segments and areas, and for every asset in every area, we dig deep into that asset, and we thought, how can safety be compromised from this asset? How can I have a chlorine discharge, as I said, if this is possible? And what will be my SIL level? How my SIL level score will be decreased? So this was an Excel sheet in the beginning, very complex Excel sheet. Then we worked with many customers to actually make it very automated, very easy. And the output of that tool is that you get the risk factor, the risk level, and it's dynamic, because once there is a new patch, new configuration, or a new vulnerability announced, your safety level should be reflecting that, either positive or negative. So it's a dynamic risk evaluation based on safety of your plant. And it's now a tool. It's a web-based tool, installed on site, and many companies are using it now. And I wanted to share this with everyone here, and happy to take any questions on this. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Great presentation, thank you. I just had a question. In the beginning, you were talking about, from a design perspective, if we're looking at attack sequences, and we take into consideration the fact that breaking the entry barrier is step one. There very well may be vulnerabilities in the perimeter or in the operating systems, et cetera, communication platforms, whatever. Once we do get beyond those controls, it comes down to the knowledge of what to do
with those access.
With that access.
Correct.
And of course what to, so from a security perspective, recognizing the fact that there very well may be vulnerabilities in the beginning, doesn't it all come back down to the OEM security? From a platform perspective, from a security perspective on the actual device? I mean, what are you actually, forgive me, but what are you teaching in terms of, you're showing us that indeed, if the infiltration makes its way into the plant, then what? Right?
Yes.
I mean, at that point, are we depending on device security? Are we depending on?
So that's a very good question. I will try to repeat that. Once we get access to that inside the plant, is it now the weakness of the platform itself that is causing that problem, or?
No, not. I mean, we've already understood that if that platform indeed had a vulnerability that was exploited,
yes.
Now we're in. So let's forget about step one. Sure. And maybe even step two. What's the message in terms of securing moving
Sure.
forward? Are we dependent here on product security? Because any one of those examples that you had mentioned, turning off a valve,
yes.
Getting rid of the purge or opening it back up, etc., they all come back down to not being able to control that PLC that makes that change.
Correct.
So therefore, is the message that you're saying dependent purely on product security?
No, absolutely not. I think the problem is not in the products. In some cases, the product was absolutely fine. It's just how the plant was designed, how the process is happening inside the plant. That is the risk, that if someone is compromising that process, he can achieve the objective. It's not the weakness in a product. And what we're saying is that if you really understand your environment enough, you will know exactly where to protect and what to protect. And that should be your focus. Because the bad guys, that's what they're doing. Once they go inside, they stay as much as possible, to learn as much as possible, and then it's like a sniper shot. They just know what to do, at what time, on what PLC. If you need to have this same knowledge of your plant. And this is how you will protect it, by the right products and the right tools. And that's the only way, I think, in my opinion, you can really stop against the top tier attacks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah, one more, and then I think it will be time.
Thank you for your presentation. In the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that maybe Middle East was attacked because of they are weak, or I don't remember the second reason, but I don't think so. We are being attacked not only in the Middle East, or anywhere in the world. It's because of weakness in the design, on the people, on the process. Okay. Also, you mentioned about the attack, and people can reach to level 1 and take over, took over the control and control the actuator or sensors. So we understood that. So we should focus on how to prevent that, how to prevent attackers to reach to level 0 or level 1 through architecture design, through people, through segmentation of the PLC network. So this is the recommendation has to deliver to audience behind your presentation.
Yeah, correct. So I think what we're trying to show from the experiment we did, yes, there are attacks in all parts of the world, but the attacks we are seeing by percentage are 40% more on the Middle East PLC than others. The sources of the attacks on the Middle East PLC are also more wider in terms of the countries where the originating bad behavior is coming from compared to the others. There's some countries doing attacks here that are not attacking other regions. So there's lots of maybe reasons behind that. It certainly cannot be the position here to discuss this, but it shows that we are the hotbed of the bad problems. If you look at the malwares, we had Stuxnet, Duku, Shamoon, Gauss. All of them happen in the Middle East. They didn't happen in Australia. They didn't happen in South America. There's a reason for that. We are seeing the worst, then we need to be prepared for the worst. That's the first part. The second part, the weakness can be from many things. It can be the process. Our process might be obsolete or not followed. Technologies, I don't think we have a problem in technologies. Maybe people. Maybe we have lack of skill sets in the region more than others. Everyone is suffering from that, but maybe we have the worst problem. On top of that, the standards and regulations maybe are here not enforced and not mandated. If you look at the NERC-CIP in the US, for example, it's self-regulatory. They did it. They, as a community, they did it. Here, we do not have any regulations in many countries. So there's no benchmarks. There's no minimum baseline. So maybe that's why we have many reasons to make us the easiest link or the weakest link. Okay.